Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Anatomy of the Arts. I'm your host, Ethan Neville, and today I'm joined by someone that I'm a huge fan of. He is an incredible director of short films. It's Luca Pizzoleo. How are you, Luca?
I'm good, man. How you doing?
I'm great. Now, I like to go to the start quite a bit. So, has directing always been what you wanted to pursue?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Ever since I was a kid, it was like I remember the first instance. So I kind of grew up in a household where my dad is from Italy and my mom is from
Mm,
America, and so my mom was a little bit more strict on the type of films and content that I
yeah.
could consume, where my dad was like, "Oh, I don't care," and so
Mhm.
it'd be just like he would show me like Kill Bill and like
Yeah.
all these movies that like a child shouldn't watch. But I remember watching Birds by Hitchcock, and it immediately struck an intrigue where it just blew my mind. I mean, as a child, I was aware that it was a movie, but it was almost I always liked to figure things out. So how was it made?
Yeah.
How did they achieve those special effects? Or how did how does directing work? And through I think there was this magazine back in the 2000s called Movie Magic, and what you used to be able to see is a bunch of behind the scenes photos, and I just became like enamored with the whole
Mm,
process. Found directing in very quickly. I knew that
yeah.
that's what I wanted to pursue. I've known ever since really I was a child.
Yeah. Is Hitchcock someone that you kind of like try and emulate, I guess, in your own work, or do you have directors that emulate your work, inspire your work? Sorry.
Yeah, yeah, totally. Hitchcock is one of the big ones, especially as like a young filmmaker. For
Mm,
me, Hitchcock was like church, and then it slowly turned into Kubrick, and that's
mm,
kind of like Kubrick for me is like one of my biggest inspirations, and him, I feel like with his journey into filmmaking, it's very
yeah.
similar to me, where he started as a photographer. I was also a photographer. That was one thing that I started out really early doing. He also did documentaries. That's where I started. So I find a sort of similarity in like the way that he got his start in his
Mm,
career to where I'm at now. And also, I'm just a massive fan. Barry Lyndon is my favorite movie of all
mm.
time. I think it's a fucking masterpiece. Can I cuss on here?
Yeah, no, you're
Okay,
fine.
cool, 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 cool. Um, but yeah, no, Stanley Kubrick's a huge one. But I mean, for me, even with like Valley and Frenchman and a lot of the other films that I've done, I really find my inspiration everywhere. Like in the Valley of the Moon, the biggest inspirations for that film were Jean-Pierre Melville's Le Samurai. I mean, I don't know if you've seen that movie, but
I have
the
not.
opening
No.
of the opening of the film is very similar to Valley's opening. Thief by
Yeah,
Michael Mann. Um, there was a Tokyo Drifter, which was Seijun Suzuki. So I sort of get inspiration from everywhere. It's not typically just one
yeah.
director, but Kubrick is for sure my favorite.
Do you find that foreign films have more an impact on your work now, or do you feel like it's kind of balanced between Western and foreign?
That's a good question. For me specifically, within the last few films that I've worked in and that I've found my inspiration for
Mm,
certain things, it has mainly been foreign films
yeah,
and Western films. For me, it's been a lot of the older stuff, from like the '60s. I really went into this sort of thing where during the pandemic, I tried to watch a movie at least every day, if not two
yeah.
movies a day. And it was actually like really disgusting because I would wake up at like 5 o'clock in the morning and like throw on a movie. I had like a matinee waiting.
Just hide in your bedroom.
It's just sitting there, just eating and fucking watching a movie. But I used to watch just a ridiculous amount of movies,
Yeah,
and I kind of was just like, I'm gonna start here. Okay, I want to get into like Japanese cinema, and it was okay. You start at Kurosawa, and then you branch off from there. And I was
yeah.
like, okay, let's jump to Italian, let's jump to Dutch, and that I had this sort of like insane exploration during the pandemic.
Mm,
And for me, the films that I really gravitated towards most in terms of like finding my own style was most definitely foreign language
yeah.
films.
Do you feel like you're still trying to like create your own niche in a way, or do you feel like now that you've had success with In the Valley of the Moon, and I mean, tragic death of a Frenchman is amazing. Do you do you feel like you've kind of struck a nerve and you're there now, or do you feel like you're still on that journey to find what you want to do?
Totally. I think that I've narrowed it down pretty well. And for me, when I did In the Valley of the Moon, I feel like I was kind of still figuring it
Yeah.
out, because In the Valley of the Moon was a film that I love, and I would love the chance to remake it as a feature one day. But for me, the film isn't 100% me, and there's a
Yeah.
lot of things that I wish I did differently. And one of those big things, I'm sure you could tell with Frenchmen, like I love comedy, and I love dark
Yeah.
comedies, and I love like batshit kind of
Mm.
crazy movies. And In the Valley of the Moon has, little
Yeah,
bits
little
of that,
pockets.
but exactly. But I kind of just dipped my toes in.
Yeah.
Where Frenchmen, I was like, fuck it, I'm gonna go like
Yeah.
insane here.
Yeah.
And now I'm working on a film I just wrapped called OCD,
Yeah.
and that is like, I feel like it perfectly encapsulates what I want to do and the path that I'm going down. It's very
Yeah.
much like Frenchman, but it has more dramatic elements, but it is still just as batshit as that movie.
I mean, you've said about the dark comedy. Do you find that that's better for you to write or direct? Do you find that you have a favorite genre when you're trying to direct, produce, write? Do they differ in a way?
Totally. I mean, when I'm directing, I love comedies. That is my absolute favorite thing. Dude, Frenchman was just improv, like honestly. Like people are like, what was the script like? I'm like, it's not the movie. Like,
Written by Luca
mean,
Pizzoleo, it doesn't exist.
Nah, the actors came up with it. No, the thing is we obviously had a script, and we did, the way that I like to improv is I like to shoot it the way that it's written. And then when I get what we have, I go, okay, let's just have fun. Let's play around here. The actors will do something. I'll get an idea. I'm like, wait, let's try this. They try that. We kind of branch off. We have a shit ton of fun. And then by the end of it, even if they're like improving too long, I'm like, okay, finish the scene. Like get back on track to where the script is like leading you. And so doing a comedy is by far the most fun thing you can possibly do, especially as a director, because it's just like you're just throwing ideas and the actors, giving you something, and you're playing back and forth, and you're both kind of finding it. And with OCD, we did a decent chunk of improv. A lot of it, the script, we stuck to it, but there was little pockets where we could just have a shit ton of fun. And dude, it's unbelievably fun. I can't even describe how much I love it.
Do you I mean, I know you mentioned about being a photographer beforehand, and I think you used to sell your own prints. Is that right? Where you had like pictures that I'm guessing you'd taken.
Yeah.
Did that transition from photography and directing, was that a harsh transition, or do you feel like because you already had that, I don't know, sense of set like design and how you wanted to see things, you feel like that helped you in a way?
Right, dude. You ask really great questions. I
Thank you.
Yeah, no,
I do try.
no, they're great, dude. Jesus. I'm like, shit. I gotta think. No, I did. When I started out as a photographer, I did a lot of just like photos for friends, but a lot of it was like landscape and architecture and those sort of like very cool. You can kind of see it on my Instagram if you scroll down. But what I ended up doing was, in between doing photography, I was shooting this documentary when I was like 16 or 17, and it was called Seeking Rebirth, and it was the first thing I ever did. And I shot this documentary alongside of taking photos for the artist. And so it was kind of like hand in hand, because for me, when I started, I did start, obviously I've always wanted to direct, but I didn't have a crew. And so the beginning of my like short film career has been me shooting my own movies. So I used to be the DP, director, writer, producer, everything, and doing photography and learning and understanding,
the
certain
mechanics of it.
Of course, then it can definitely apply to like a cinematographer. And although I do think those two things, although they are similar, they are very different. What makes a great photo may not make a great frame in a movie, but it definitely helped me in a lot of ways. I would never, I kind of stopped doing it. It's not my passion. It was something I did, and it was very fun. I got really lucky. I did a deal with like Home Goods and Home Sense, which is like a retailer in like the US, and they, sold my work, and that was really nice, but I don't think I'd do it again. It's just, I just don't love it.
Do you, because I actually can't believe I'm going to say these words on the podcast, but there's that one scene in the Tragic Death of a Frenchman. It was the scene with Chernobyl titty fucker. I mean, you had what was it, boiling, boiling baby milk.
Bubbled, yeah.
Yeah, bubbled baby milk. I'm guessing that roots from your time as a photographer. Does that, because like it's surrounded with all this like material of war, the bubbling milk, like the disgusting, the putrid, like the ones, the bits you don't want. Do you reckon that kind of like photography and the set design now, do you feel like that's given you an advantage in a way?
Oh, 1,000%. I mean, understanding just basic, it's like you look at certain photos when they say take a picture of like objects and put them in places. Because I did a photography class. I never really took a film class, but in terms of like framing and building a scene, photography helped. But one of the biggest elements that helped me was a dear friend of mine. His name is Bruce Buhner. He's a production designer. He worked at Warner Brothers, and he kind of took me under his wing when I was like 17 or 18. And so I was on a couple of different shows like Pretty Little Liars and whatnot. Yeah, and he took me on the show and just showed me like the inner workings of the industry. And I remember when I first started making movies, I didn't have a production designer, I didn't have a set designer. It was pretty much just me.
Yeah.
And I remember he kind of sat me down. He's like, this is great, but what you could do is you could add this and that and make that interesting. You never want a wall to be just blank and white. You want to find ways to fill it. And because of him, like the Tragic Death of a Frenchman, I set that entire apartment. So that apartment was empty. It was a completely empty apartment.
Because you had the vinyls on the wall with all the Bob Marley and everything. Was that was intentional?
Yeah, it was all intentional. So it was an empty space. We got really lucky because my friend, he's actually the artist who I made my first movie with, Seeking Rebirth. He was living in the place, and he ended up moving to Spain. And so he was like, "Hey, I'm out of this place. If you want to use it to shoot your movie, you can shoot your movie." And I was like, "Okay, great. Is there any furniture?" He's like, "No." And I was like, "Oh shit, okay." So I reached out to Bruce. He hooked me up with a friend who I've worked with before on a film called Gold. And he blanking on his name, but he works at the Warner Brothers property house.
Oh yeah.
And so he let me come in and basically rent all the furniture, so the couch and the rug and all those sort of like bits and pieces we rented, and I've built with the knowledge that Bruce kind of helped me with, of like, hey, just know, if there's a corner, like fill it, don't leave it empty, this and that. And so because of him, that's a huge reason why. I mean, the photography obviously helped, but I think that was like a main thing.
Yeah. Does that take a while? Are you kind of a perfectionist in that sense? Does it take a while to create a set? Or do you...
Yeah, dude, I'm a psychopath. I'm like I'm literally insane. It's so funny because outside of just like building a scene or set dressing or whatever it is, I am so meticulous just about the work. And I remember I was on OCD, and we shot with Stephen Ogg, who's like an incredible actor. And Stephen ended up telling me, he's like, I've worked with like a lot of directors, and it's really impressive to see at your age just how like meticulous you are. Because dude, I have like fucking pages of shit, and I'm like, okay, we're doing this, like I have this, and like, oh, this isn't right, and I go like turn it, oh, that's this way or whatnot. And so Frenchman was like, we got really lucky because the apartment was empty, and so I was in that apartment just like building it and like dressing it the way I wanted to for like 3 days before we ended up shooting it. And whereas something like OCD, I was still very meticulous, but we were shooting at a location, and so we didn't necessarily have that grace of like time. But yeah, no, I'm like psychotic actually. Like it's not good. Well, it is, but like not for me, because I'm just like fucking shit.
Psycho.
Yeah.
Do you because like OCD, that was set in a grocery store, was it?
It's like a liquor store, mini mart.
Yeah. Is that better for you in a way? Because I know you were saying that it takes, you're a psycho with it. Do you reckon a preset or a pre-made set helps you kind of like make a story around it, or do you feel like it hinders you in a way because it kind of limits what you can do with that space?
It's a good question, because going into OCD and going into the market, I was a little nervous because obviously, excuse me, they have things they have things set up a certain way. And like, for instance, in the movie, kind of like a big chunk of the film is our main character, Owen. He sees a rocky road in the vanilla section and it just kind of freaks him out. And he's like, oh, fuck, I got to fix it, whatever. And so for me, I was like, okay, well, the way that I'm envisioning it is I want floor to ceiling, like vanilla ice cream. And I want one rocky road, just like misplaced to the right. And it's difficult because finding a store that has like an ice cream section that also in my head, I'm like, okay, well, I want him to walk this way, turn right, see it. So that way he has this like long run to the rocky road. But obviously you have to adjust depending on the location. And because we don't have a huge budget, you kind of have to work with what you get. And so in the film, we ended up using one of the wine sections and just pulling all the wine out and then putting all the ice cream in there, because their ice cream section just for me visually wasn't, or I didn't love it. Well, obviously on a bigger film you can adjust those things and like move a fridge or like move the props or whatever it is, but for me at like my stage, it's like it's a hindrance. But I also do think that in some way it inspires more creativity, because being on location, you get different ideas and you go, okay, wait, I didn't even think about that. Maybe this would work better, or that would work better. We did that with Valley. We were supposed to shoot at a completely different house, and I had it all. Dude, I had it all mapped out. I found my journal. No, it's crazy. I'll tell you what's crazy. I had, this is what I mean by psycho. I went on like the pictures of the home and I like sketched out a schematic of the home. And I'm like, okay, so he's going to start here and then he's going to move here. And then this is, because the whole thing kind of takes place in like that one area. I'm like, okay, and then this is where the shooting happens. And then the lady's like, oh, by the way, you can't do it. And I was like, fuck. So I did all that work. And it was absolutely worthless. And then when we actually got the other house, I was a little disappointed, because initially the first house for me was perfect, but this other house actually ended up working out better. And even though it didn't have this specific thing I was looking for, it gave me a new idea, and I feel like it ended up better in the end.
Yeah. When you're creating a set, do you go in, because I know you say you plan quite a bit, do you go in, you've already planned the set, or do you kind of like put something down and then you bounce off it and then go to something else and then kind of make it that way?
Totally. I think for me, the way that I've kind of been doing it is like, I don't really want to be a set dresser, like a set designer. I think it's something out of like necessity. It's like at this stage, you don't really have a lot of money to be like, hey, I need a set designer and I need this guy and I need that and then this girl and that lady or whatever. Like that is something that is reserved when you actually have a budget. We've never really had a budget, but the way that I've sort of been doing it, even if I do have a set designer, I do still think I'll play like an important role. And obviously the director does, and like, okay, maybe this should go there, that should go there. But for me, I think I have it mainly planned out of how I want it. But sometimes when you get to the location, things change and you get a new idea and you're like, actually, that would look better over there, or maybe over here, or that over there. And like, it was like that with OCD. I had a general idea. Like I ended up getting these candies that I had made called uh-ohs, and like they're really sick and they look real. And I had these canned foods that he's like turning and like cleaning, and it's like sushi in a can. And so I made those specifically, and I was like, okay, I have these props. I don't know exactly where I want them, but based off the photos, like I have an idea. But then when you get there, it's like things definitely change.
Now I know tragic death. I mean, most of your films have starred Ryan and Raz. Yeah. How did that connection? Because Landon's been in quite a few as well. How did that relationship begin?
Yeah. So the thing that's funny is Raz is my best friend. I've known Raz for 15 years. We met super random on Xbox, and so we were playing Modern Warfare 2. Yeah, we were playing Modern Warfare 2. And we were just little kids, and so we were in the lobby, and I was just talking, and I could hear another kid. You could tell because we both had like prepubescent voices, and so I was like, what school do you go to? And he's like, I go to this school, and I was like, really? I go to that school too. And he's like, no way. And I was like, let's meet up tomorrow at the 8th grade lawn. And so we ended up meeting the next day. And like, big ass backpack. And I was like, are you Ninja Beast? And he's like, yeah, are you Barricade?
You should make a movie about that. Just
we should. It's like that scene from Step Brothers. He's like, you can call me Nighthawk. It's like, it's so funny, but that's how we met. And him and I started out as just like, obviously friends, and we used to play video games, and that's all we really used to do. And then it turned into, let's start making some funny movies, like little skits. And then that turned into, let's take this really serious and let's start making like actual short films. Let's put our like full thought and attention to it, because he always wanted to be an actor. And then for me, I've always wanted to be a director. So it kind of worked out like absolutely perfectly. And then I met Ryan because he's now engaged to my cousin. And
perfect.
yeah, it's funny. Also funny too, me and Ryan, because my cousin, she started dating him like 11 years ago. And I'm very close with my cousin. She's like a sister. Like I grew up with her. And so I've known like all, her like relationships and whatnot. And when I met Ryan, I was like, okay, he's nice. And then he ended up hitting me up one day. He's like, hey, you want to play GTA 5? And I was like, fuck yeah. And so we were like, we played like GTA 5 together, and like that's kind of where we started like our friendship. And then he always also wanted to be an actor, and I had already been making films. And then it just became this sort of thing where during COVID I had this really big block creatively, where I felt like I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know where like my life was kind of going. And obviously I think a lot of people felt that in COVID too, because it really did stop everything. And so Ryan told me, he's like, I think it would be great if we just did like something that could be like safe, that we don't get like sick from. Cause like Ryan and I are both like super hypochondriacs. And so I was like, stay away from me, like 10 feet, like whatever. And I was like, okay, well, let me come up with a movie that we could do this like in a safe way, whatever. And we did this movie called West of Calico, which we shot it out in like the desert. And the whole point of the movie really was just to make a scene, so that way we could add it into like our demo reels. And then we ended up just making it a short and like putting it out. I don't love West of Calico, but it was a nice start to like working with Ryan. And then I was like, oh shit, I have an idea, like In the Valley of the Moon. And then we did In the Valley of the Moon. And then about Landon, I met Landon on Actors Access. And so I was casting for the role of In the Valley of the Moon for Samson.
Oh, right.
Landon auditioned. Landon was the best. He was incredible. And then after working with him, he's such a fucking awesome guy to work with. He's so funny. He's so nice. Like him and I, like every time we're on set, we're just laughing, and he's a really great actor. And so after Valley, I was like, I want to work with him again. And Ryan and I wrote Frenchman, and Frenchman is really written for everyone in mind. Like the initial version of the script was, the characters' names were Roz, Ryan, Landon. It wasn't like Ned, Louie, and Quinn. Yeah, no, it worked perfectly, because we were like, let's just write them about each other. Let's just do like exaggerated versions of each other. And even Olivier, who shares the same name in the movie, is Olivier, and he's incredible. He's so funny.
Yeah. Do you with tragic? Oh, because you wrote with Ryan, was that easier to do? Because obviously, actually, no, you said that you didn't write the first one, but do you find it easier to write with someone else? Do you find that an easier thing to do?
Yeah, well, for me, I think it's something that I enjoy more. I wrote In the Valley of the Moon by myself, and I've written every script prior to Valley, by myself. And then Ryan, he's a very funny guy, and so I was like, let's write something together. And working with him on Frenchman was really, it was just a really fun experience. And for me, I enjoy collaborating with a writer, because for me, I don't love writing. It's not my favorite thing in the world. And so like sitting on a page and being stuck, I'm just like, and like, it's just not, it's not my like bread and butter. But it's the same with OCD. OCD was written by another writer, Connor Patrick Walsh, who's like fucking amazing. And him and I met, and it was very similar to Ryan and I's relationship, where it was him and I collaborated on every kind of like little bit of it, and then he went away and wrote it, and then came back, and I was like, I love that. Like that's just like, that's like my preferred kind of thing, like working with the writer, and then they write it, and then when you send the script, I can give you my notes and we'll work on it together. But like the actual writing, like I hate like physically writing. It's just
do you
not
find
my
anything
favorite.
helps with that? Do you think anything
What's that?
helps with that? Do you think anything helps with that? Like
with getting over that?
Yeah.
No,
No,
it's
it's always going to be there.
exposure therapy. I think,
Yeah.
like in a way, right? Like exposing yourself to it, forcing yourself to do
Yeah.
it. But then also that can make you hate it because you're like,
Mm,
okay, I'm just fucking forcing myself to do it,
mm,
and it feels like homework. But I have enjoyed writing recently,
yeah.
like in the past like year or two. It's just I'd much prefer to have a writing partner.
Yeah.
That way, it's not like 100% of the work is on my end. And I also think bringing in another like incredible creative
Yeah.
mind can make an even better movie.
Bolster
And
it. Yeah.
that's exactly, and OCD would be nothing without Connor. And Connor, the ideas he brings to the table, he's a fucking genius. Like I feel stupid sometimes when I meet with him because he'd be
Mm.
like, oh, what if we do that? And I was
Mhm.
like, shit, wow,
Oh,
that's good,
fuck,
dude.
man.
Like where are
Oh,
you
Connor,
and,
can you just
and
stop that, please?
yeah,
You make
and
me...
I'm like no, and I'm like, fuck, I gotta come up with something now. I gotta come up with something.
Do you, when you're writing, is that, or when you're going back and forth with Connor or any writer, is that a long process, or does it kind of just happen and then it's only a few things, or does it depend on the writer?
Yeah, I think it depends definitely on the writer. I've only really worked with two writers at this point, and Connor is a much more, I wouldn't say proven writer, but
Yeah.
he's written multiple features, he's written tons of shorts, and so he's in a stage where he is a very professional writer,
Yeah.
whereas like Ryan and I are just kind of like young filmmakers
Mm.
that like we write, but like we're not writers. And so with Connor, like the process with OCD, for instance, is I met him on a Zoom call that my manager set me up with. And then from that Zoom call, Connor was like, oh, let's go grab a beer. And so we ended up grabbing a beer like the following week. And, like 4 or 5 beers, you kind of start to
Yeah.
open up a little bit. And he was like, I like struggled with really bad OCD when I was a kid. And I was
Mm.
like, well, me too, because in a lot of people, the thing is, a lot of people get OCD kind of mixed up where they think it's like, oh, it's just about like making sure things are neat. And
Yeah.
that's not what it is at all. It really is why you do those things.
Yeah.
And so like, it's like, okay, I have to move my shoes a certain way so that way like my mom won't die today.
Mm.
It's like
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
it's like crazy shit, dude.
Yeah. It
Like it
gets
was
bad.
dude, it was so bad when I was younger. It would be shit where I'm like, okay, I got to make it to the end of there before that guy makes it or my grandma's going to die. You know what I mean? It's like stupid, like crazy,
Yeah.
intrusive thoughts
Yeah,
that
but
like
it makes it's so believable when you tell yourself that kind of thing.
it is. It is. And that's the thing. It's a very real problem that a lot of people
Mm.
face, but a lot of people don't understand it. And so like there's a lot of times where like I'll mention OCD and people will be like, oh yeah, I like being neat too. And I'm like, well, it's not
Yeah.
just about being neat.
Yeah.
And so Connor and I kind of talked, and he's like, I have an idea. I always had an idea for a film that what if all those crazy batshit intrusive
Mm.
thoughts that you thought were going to happen actually happened. And I was like, oh, okay. And then I went home and I kind of came up with this idea for the short, which is essentially the bones of the film with like the main character and like, this and that. And when I ended up emailing Connor and I was like, hey, by the way, that like OCD idea you were telling me like kind of stuck with me. I came up
Mm.
with this. Tell me what you think. And he's like, I fucking love that, dude. Like, let's do it. And so
Yeah.
he has a very meticulous process where we would meet every week. He would have like cue cards, or sorry, not cue cards, the little index cards. And we'd write like act 1, act 2, act 3, all the beats in between. And then at the very end of that process, when that's all figured out, he went off and wrote it. And I thought it was going to take a couple months, or like a month, maybe 3 weeks, I don't know. And Connor came back in like 2 days. He's like, "Oh, done." And I was like, "Bro, Jesus, man! Like, do you like sleep?" Um, and he sent it to me, and it was a really good first
Yeah.
draft. I had some notes. I went over to his house, we got it together, and then once we kind of condensed to a final, then it was just like off to pitching it and finding people, finding the actors and whatnot. So it's an interesting process, but it definitely varies per
Yeah.
person.
How long is the process of overall, like, I don't know, directing and making the movie? How long was it for In the Valley of the Moon and Frenchman? Were they kind of similar?
They very similar. Valley of the Moon. The thing was, actually, Frenchman was much longer because Valley of the Moon was probably about a 4-month process. I came up with the idea one night. I was listening to this song called "Breakaway" by Irma Thomas, and I was like, oh, "Dude, like a fucking realtor mobster, that's awesome." And so, like, I just kind of came up with it from there. Had a script probably like within a week, And then from there, we did some drafts, started casting, got the locations. And then by the end of it, once it was edited and completely finished, it was about a 4-month process. But while I was editing Frenchman, we were simultaneously writing, or sorry, while I was editing Valley, we were simultaneously writing Frenchman.
Really?
So I was like, yeah, so I was editing Valley and then, you know, like open up a new tab and I'm like, okay, let's write Frenchman. And so it was this process where it was very like interweaved in a way.
Yeah.
And then when I did Frenchman, when we started production, which I think was in, I think February of 2022, I think. I'm almost certain. And basically we started our first shoot date there. And then I think our last shoot date was in December. So it was almost an entire year, because the thing was, is the movie, it wasn't a very expensive movie at all. I think the whole movie was under $2,000, like to actually make.
Bad.
It's not, and especially for like 30 minutes, it wasn't too bad. But the thing is I wanted very specific things, like that quick cutaway to the Fargo scene, for instance. Like I was like, I want to be in the snow. You know what I mean? And obviously that's not really realistic. Like I'm in like California, and so like there's no real snow over here.
Yeah.
But so we all kind of came with this idea. Let's drive to fucking Big Bear. Let's wait till November. Let's like drive out there. Let's fucking buy a wood chipper. Let's go build it and let's shoot this 3-second scene. And so I went to fucking Lowe's or Home Depot. I bought this huge ass wood chipper. Brought it out to
Where's
Big
the
Bear.
wood chipper now? Where's it now?
It's returned. It's returned. I can't do anything with a wood chipper.
After shoving a dead body in it. It's got blood
I say it's in my
it.
backyard. Yeah, no. It was unbelievably expensive, but the only reason why I bought it is because to rent it, it's like half the price and you don't get your money back for renting.
Right,
so I was like, I'd rather just buy it and then get the money back for it. And so we ended up buying the wood chipper, taking it out, shooting that scene. And then I think that was one of the last days. And like, not to spoil Frenchman, but after that day, I was like, wait, I want to get a shot of the body bag hitting the water at the very end of the movie. And so we went back out to like Malibu where we shot it initially, and we took this fucking rug and we like tossed it in the ocean, which is a nightmare of a story that, you know, I could tell you if you want, but
go for it.
Basically the thing was, right, we never got a shot initially of like the body hitting the water. And so I was like, there's nothing to look at. So I was like, okay, we need it. And then I'm like, well, how do we make this body float? Because it has to float in the water. So like, because everything's going to sink, and you know, it's not going to look good. In the final of the movie, it's hilarious. How it's just floating. Like, I love it. But I was like, okay, what do we do? So I was like, oh, I have an idea. My dad and I started talking. He's like, we take a bunch of packing peanuts and you put them in like garbage bags and you just like tape them up and shit.
Wow,
and then you put them in and then you roll it up and then you tie the rug and whatnot. So I was like, that's a good idea. So we did that, and then we tossed the rug in the ocean, and then we're filming it. And like the way the tide was, it was bringing the rug back like every probably like, you know, I don't know, like every time we threw it in, it came back.
It just didn't want to leave.
it just came back. So I was like, okay, well, you know, I'm not not a litterer, you know, like I'm not like a dude who just like throws like trash everywhere. Like, you know, I'm not a dick, but like I was like, well, I don't want to obviously pollute the ocean with a bunch of like packing peanuts. I mean, I'm gonna kill like 100 fish maybe. And so it kept coming back, but then there was this one where Ryan and Roz threw it really far and it kind of went over this wave. And then I was like, oh shit. And it started going out really, really far. And I mean, I guess really far for me is different to really far for someone else. Cause for me, I'm terrified of the ocean. Like, I don't swim in the ocean. I go up to like my shin and I'm like, that's still too deep. And so as it went out, Ryan and Roz were yelling at me and they're like, you gotta go get it, dude. You gotta go get that fucking bag. It's gonna like pollute the ocean and shit. And then the bag, a wave hits the bag and the rug opens and the two garbage bags of peanuts start floating. And so now it's the rug, the rope, and the 2 packets of peanuts. And the peanuts aren't open, they're contained in a bag, but still they're floating. So now I got like 6 things that I gotta get. And so I was like, okay, I'm gonna like go in, and I went in like to my knee, which was a lot for me.
Like a Baywatch scene, and just you running across.
And by the way, dude, it's midnight, and so it's freezing. Like it's absolutely freezing. My legs, like I couldn't feel my toes when we got in the car, and so I ended up getting everything, like, thankfully. But by the time we got to the car, I'm fucking drenched. We have like this like wet peanuts and like fucking wet rugs and shit. And so we found like a trash can. We threw it all away, and then we went to like a gas station. We had to buy like water. I had to like pour water all over me, like cool me down because I was just so fucking cold. You know, it was insane, dude. It was a fun shoot, but to answer your initial question, Frenchman was about a year, and then OCD right now is coming on, I think, 6 months, and we've finished the film essentially completely, just waiting on our sound designer. But every film kind of varies.
Yeah, because I know Frenchman that most of the scenes were shot at night, weren't they?
Yeah.
Did that? I don't know. That must have hindered it in a massive way because you only had a certain amount of time. Were you? I know. Did the actors' schedules kind of constrict that as well?
No, it's a really good question. I think, to be honest, I actually really prefer shooting at night. It's
Really?
my favorite thing because nighttime you have even lighting. You know, when you shoot during the day, if you start at 1 o'clock, by the time 4 o'clock rolls around, the lighting has shifted completely. And so it's not to say I hate daytime scenes, but nighttime scenes for me just feel more like the continuity is all the way through. And so like OCD, the whole film takes place at night. And that is something that I wanted because to make it during the daytime, and also too, I don't know, like you're in the UK, do they do daylight savings there?
Yeah, I think so. Where the clock goes back and then forward and then.
Yeah, look, I guess the whole world's the same. I'm just like, I don't know what we do in America.
No.
So, like, you know, but when daylight savings happens, we lose an hour of shooting. And so when we were shooting Valley, the whole film took place during the day, but when mid shoot, daylight savings happened. And so we had to come in an hour earlier than we did before, which is like even fucking earlier, which like sucks. And so in California at like 4:30, it's like sunset at 4:30. And so it's really fucking dark. And so with OCD, you know, in the actors' schedules, typically, I know there's a lot of actors who don't like working at night. Some do. I've had some in the past where they're like, yeah, you know, it's kind of shitty because an average film shoot is about 12 hours. And so if with OCD, the goal was we start at 5 p.m. and we get out of there at 5 a.m., which is definitely a lot for some people. And I also completely understand too, because it is like so dangerous driving at night. And that's kind of like my biggest fear is like people coming to the set tired and then like going home. But there's something oddly calming about a night shoot because there's just no real distractions. It's just everyone in the scene. And so with Frenchman, I will say Frenchman, the beginning, all the apartment stuff was shot during the daytime. I will say.
Oh, really?
That was shot during the daytime. But the reason why we did that was because they have to be yelling. And I'm like, I can't have you guys yelling in this apartment. Like, you fucking killed him. No, I didn't kill him. I can't have you guys do that.
Yeah, you can litter in the ocean, but we can't disturb the neighbors here, guys. Can we have the priorities here?
I was like, dude, at 8 p.m., if you say that, it's gonna sound real. But like at 11 a.m., come on, like no one's gonna buy that.
You had trouble with it was on another podcast where you said that the scene where they're putting the body into the trunk, someone saw you do that. Can you just explain to the listeners what happened there?
So the thing is, dude, is like a lot of the way that I like to shoot is I'm a very guerrilla filmmaker. So it's not like, okay, let's go get a permit from the city, let's do this. And like, yes, those things are required when you have a huge crew, but I like keeping it small, which is like, you know, a pro and a con for this specific situation. Because I was like, okay, we need to find an alley. And I found an alley that was like kind of close by. And I was like, this place looks cool. Like, I like the vibe of it. I was like, let's go here at 3 o'clock in the morning. No one's going to be there. And it's just going to be like us four. Like, who's going to stop us? And so it was me, Jeremy, my DP, our sound person, Roz and Ryan, and then obviously a dead Olivier, which was a dummy, by the way. But
just to clarify,
just to clarify,
Olivier, all right, guys.
I just want to say, Olivier, we didn't break his legs, but he did say you could if you want, which was really funny. He did. He's so committed. It's crazy. He's like, it's so funny. But basically what happened is we were in this alleyway and Roz and Ryan are carrying the dummy, and we were on like, I think a 75 lens, or no, actually it was bigger. I think it was a 150 or something. I don't remember. And so we were really far away from Roz and Ryan. And I was on a speakerphone with Ryan, and because I was trying to keep it low, I wasn't trying to yell.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, Ryan, like, go, you guys go. And then they're all the way at the end of this fucking alley, and they're like, ugh, and they're carrying this body. And as they're carrying this body, this car just drives by, and I see it. And I'm like, shit. And there's this lady, and you can just see her in the car, go like that. You know what I mean? Like, just look directly at him. And so I was like, fuck. And the red lights go on, like the reverse lights. And I was like, oh fuck, here we go. She backs up, and Roz and Ryan stop, and as they stop, the body rolls out, like the dummy rolls out of the bag. And she goes, oh my God, is that a dead body? And I was like, no, we're just making a movie. And she's like, okay, cool. And she just left. And I was like, all right.
There's a bit of a weird.
So, yeah. I guess pro tip to any like potential future killers.
Yeah,
say you're making a movie.
Yeah, any killers out there, just pretend that you're doing something that you're just not doing, murder, and
just have a slate and a boom pole.
Yeah, exactly.
People buy it. Yeah,
exactly. I mean, you said earlier that West of Calico, you didn't particularly like it. I'm sorry, I can't go on from that. She just drove off straight away after.
Yeah, you're good.
Right, with West of Calico, you said you didn't like. You didn't like it. When you look back, because obviously now you're an award-winning short film director. Does that, you look back at your old projects and you kind of, I could have done something different there, or that would have been good there. Does that happen on quite a bit?
It happens on everything. I mean, it really does. Even, I do love my own movies, and sometimes I do watch them back, and I'm like, okay, like there's something that I do, because really the reason why I make movies is for myself. It's like, I wanted to see In the Valley of the Moon. I wanted to see Frenchmen. Those are kind of like the main reasons why I make a movie. But when it comes to like my older projects, I think pre-Valley, it didn't fully feel like me. And I think a lot of that was me kind of figuring myself out. And I think Valley was like that kind of right in the middle point, or not middle, but close to the end, where I was coming over the edge, where I'm like, okay,
the turning point of it.
The turning point. It's like, okay, I'm figuring out what my style is.
Yeah.
And I'm like really close, but I'm not quite there. And then when I did Frenchmen, I completely knew. And then OCD is like, that's me. Yeah. And so like the projects helped in every way. But I think when I first started making movies, a lot of them, I made them because I thought people would like it. And so I'm like, oh, okay. My first movie I did was about this like depressed guy, and typical kind of like trope that a lot of like indie films end up doing. And I was like, oh, this is going to be so deep, and it's going to get into like Sundance. And like, obviously it didn't. And I know, and I know why, it's not amazing. And it's the same with Calico. Like Calico, I don't really consider it as like one of my short films. I really consider it, I mean, the reason why Frenchmen and OCD are a thing is because of Calico.
It's like a stepping stone.
It was. And what it was it was something that helped me get out of this creative funk, because I didn't know what I was doing. And when I did that, I immediately was like, I'm inspired again. I want to like keep creating and whatnot. And so, looking back at Calico, I do wish I added more, because it's a little fucking confusing. Like even for me, sometimes I watch, I'm like, but and then I did a movie called Gold, and Gold, I don't hate it either, but it's also one of those movies where I feel like it wasn't fully me. But those things are important, and that's why like a big piece of advice that a lot of people ask, and I don't think I'm the best, I guess, advice giver, because I'm still like figuring it out. So I can't be like, you do this and you'll be successful. Like I'm not successful yet, but I'm figuring it out. And so like one of the biggest pieces of advice that I do think I can give is to just create and put it out there. And even if it isn't something that you're 100% proud of, that is going to help you realize, like, even too with like TikTok and all the stuff that I've like posted, there's been people who are like, nah, I don't like this about Gold, or I don't like this about Calico. And there's certain things that I hear and I go, you know what, like they're right. Like I hear certain things. I don't really pay too much mind to like people who are just assholes, but like if someone has a genuine piece of criticism, like, hey, Calico was a cool movie, but you didn't really explain a lot of the stuff. It was a little too vague for the audience to like, understand. And
Yeah.
like the audience is what you're trying to convey to. So it's like if the audience isn't getting it, then you need to do something different. And so like by putting things out there and also by being judgmental about your own work, if you put something
Yeah.
out and you're like, it's perfect, I think it's a little odd because even like I said, I watch West of Calico and I go, I don't know what the fuck's happening. You know what I mean? It's my movie and I wrote it. And so, but those things help you as a filmmaker by putting those out, by rewatching. You go, I get it. I get where I fucked up, and I know how I can apply that to the next film and do better next time.
Yeah. Do you? Because I'm for the listeners that aren't aware, Luca Pizzoleo, he's won quite a few awards. At the best shorts competition, he won for editing, direction, screenplay, and movie trailer. He's acclaimed. He's not new to this. Do those awards affect you now that you have received them kind of things, or do you kind of not pay too much mind to it?
I think they're really nice. I've never been keen on being like, oh, I'm an award-winning filmmaker, because I don't like being like, oh, well, I have this and I have that. I don't think those things necessarily matter. I think they're really cool. Like we did like Queens World Film Festival, and we won like 2 awards there, and they flew us out to New York, and we were there, and it was really amazing, and it was an incredible experience. But like I'm not like gripping onto them and going, listen guys, like I'm a fucking best shorts 5-time best shorts winner, like listen to me. Like listen to me. Like I don't think awards necessarily determine the quality of something, and that's to be seen by bigger award shows. There's plenty of movies that win that, a lot of people agree that shouldn't have won. And that's just how it is. And sometimes a lot of it is just kind of like politics of like, okay, well, the guy who won this festival, I'm not saying that like I won the festivals because of this, but I'm saying there's been a lot of instances where it's like, oh, the guy who won this festival is like the son of the owner, or the guy who won this is like a son of like a producer's friend, this and that. And it is a really interesting, like, little
dynamic.
circuit. It is. And I'm not saying that every film festival is like that,
absolutely,
or whatnot. It's definitely not, but there is quite a bit there that I don't think, like I said, they determine. For instance, Frenchman won jack shit. Frenchman got into no festivals. It did horribly, like absolute critical failure on a festival front. Valley of the Moon was like, oh, it got into like 15 festivals and got all these awards and whatnot. Frenchman did nothing. But Frenchman was much more successful for me than Valley, because on the internal side of things, I made a lot of like actual industry connections based off of that film, because people saw it through like my manager who found me off of TikTok, and he ended up like introducing me to a bunch of people with that film. They're like, oh my God, Frenchman's amazing. So that's why, I don't think the awards are like a massive deal. And I think like even like I said, Frenchman was more successful for me for what like you want a film festival to be. You want a film festival to introduce you to people in the industry, and I truly haven't met very many people through film festivals. And if anything, the biggest the biggest thing that has helped me success wise is TikTok. That's the only thing that I've actually found any modicum of like
because that's how I found
success. No, it's dude, it's crazy. It's insane. I started TikTok about a year ago, and after it did decently well, but I mean, I met like so many people. The whole reason why I'm doing OCD is because of TikTok. Like I'm doing OCD because I met this guy from TikTok that introduced me to this guy, to Connor. You know what I mean? So it's like, it's insane how beneficial TikTok can be, because for me doing film festivals for like the past 7 years, I've found no ounce of success. And by the way, when I say success, I mean like connections and like meetings and new projects. And like where I have found like the most success I've ever found has been because of like TikTok and because of social media. And even like Ariel, who's in OCD, she's like this big like TikTok,
she's massive on it.
She followed me, and I was like, who is this? And I showed my girlfriend. She's like, oh my God, that's like baby Ariel. Like she's this like whatever, blah blah blah. And I was like, okay, I'll DM her and see if she wants to be in the movie, because I had a part and I wanted to see if she wanted to read for it. And that's how we got her. And she's amazing and very sweet. And it's so weird how beneficial social media
Yeah.
is. And that's why, like, anyone, like even my friends, I'm like, you guys should do it, because putting your shit out there, you never know. You
Yeah.
never know if it's going to
No,
do well, and you
exactly.
never know who's going to see it. Everyone has a phone, everyone scrolls. That big producer or big agent is just scrolling one day and they go, oh, okay, that's
Yeah.
cool. Like, I think it's an amazing tool.
How, because obviously baby Ariel, how do you pronounce her name? Ariel.
I think Ariel, yeah,
Yeah.
Ariel.
She found you through TikTok. How did you become connected with Stephen Ogg?
So I ended up reaching out to his agents directly. And so I reached out to, like, I think 2 or 3 people. Steven was someone who I was like, he's not gonna read this. That's not gonna happen. And because we ended up casting it publicly online through Actors Access, and although the actors were good, it just wasn't what I
Wasn't
really
the right
needed
fit, yeah.
someone.
Yeah.
It wasn't the right fit. And Steven was someone who I had always had in mind for the part, if this was like a dream to get him in
Yeah.
it. And I reached out to him, or I reached out to his agents directly, and I was like, hey, this is who I am. This is the project. I have like a manager here, and so, like, I'm legit. I'm not just like some nobody or whatever. Well, I am a nobody, but you know what I mean. Like, you gotta, like, when you reach out to people, you gotta kind of like sell yourself a little bit higher.
That's what I did when I tried to get you. I was like, yeah, I got this podcast, got this.
Really
like,
sick
yeah,
podcast.
Yeah.
Well,
It's
it's
really
great
cool
too.
podcast.
No, well, it's
Thanks,
great because
thank
I
you.
watched, and I think the thing is like, obviously by saying certain things, you do have to like lie a little bit and be like,
Yeah.
hey, like, if you're reaching out to someone to be like, can you work with me? You got to be like, I'm like decently. You don't want to be a cocky, but you want to be like, yeah, I'm pretty good at what I do and this and that. And then that's how you get people interested.
No,
but then it's
exactly.
it's also like when I reach out to certain other people where I'm trying to get like a good deal. Like, if I'm trying to find a location for a movie, I'm like, listen, I'm a fucking nobody. I've done nothing in my life.
Please
Like,
help me, guys. Please.
I'm really trying to make this movie so I can, like, move out or like whatever. So it's interesting, but yeah, I reached out to them. They sent it to Steven. It was kind of like this process, I think, of like a few weeks, and they got back to me and they said Steven is like enthusiastic and loves the script and is super interested in like talking and meeting. And we ended up meeting shortly after, I think like a few weeks after that initial email, and we just grabbed a beer at this bar. And he's the coolest guy. I mean, he's everything you think he is. He's just very nice, very kind. He's funny. He's very intelligent, like a very intelligent man. And so, like, every conversation I've had with him, it's like branched off. Like, the first like 3 meetings we had, I don't even think we talked about the movie. I mean, we were just like drinking beer and like just talking about like some fucking deep shit that I can't even remember. But no, he's an incredible guy, and we ended up shooting probably three-ish months after I met him, and he was also equally incredible on set. And for me as a director at my stage, because obviously, like, I really am like at the bottom, in my opinion. I haven't really done anything. I've done my movies and I've like worked with my friends, but then working with someone who's already a successful actor and has done huge movies, it was such a incredible experience for me as a director, because directing this actor who has been directed by like huge directors and huge movies and shows and whatnot, it was really, really like just the most incredible experience. And he's such a generous actor, where him and I had an idea of like, this is how we want the character, but when we were on set, I was like, let's play around, play it more like this, let's try this, or blah 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 blah, and he would do it like immediately. Like, it's unbelievable for me. Is like, if I was an actor watching him, I feel like I would learn so much just watching him work. He's amazing.
I think that's quite funny that you mentioned that, like, Stephen Ogg actually said yes, because you said earlier that when you first talked to Ryan, he asked you if you want to play GTA 5, and now you're here casting and directing Trevor from GTA 5. It's cyclical. It's Do you now find that because of the incorporation of him and Baby Ariel, that now you want to kind of like push and now branch out to get more of those kind of people in, or do you feel like you might dip your feet in, and keep to how you were?
I think it's a good question, but for me, where like I'm at is the next thing. I'm like done with short films. I
Oh,
don't want to make
really?
another. I'm like, I don't want to make another short film again.
Yeah.
I want to make a feature, and so OCD, we've been writing it as a feature, and we're going to use the short kind of as like our proof of concept. So very similar to
Oh,
like
nice.
like what Damien Chazelle did with
Yeah.
Whiplash, and so we want to do the same thing where we've been writing the feature. Connor and I have been working on it for like months, and we're finishing up the film, and then we want to bring it together as like a package, because I think I'm at the stage now where I'm 25. I've been doing it for a long time, and I feel ready. Like I feel
Yeah.
ready to take a feature. I've essentially, even with Valley and Frenchman, they're 30-minute movies. They're not like short movies. And
No,
so
exactly. Yeah.
I do know how to handle like a longer runtime, and I do know that I'm not ignorant to the fact that a feature is a whole different beast, and it's a completely different thing, and there's a huge learning process, and like I'm so open to learning. And that's also what I think is a really important thing, is not to feel like you know everything, because I know, like, that's why I even said like earlier, I'm like, I don't like giving advice, because I'm
Yeah.
like, I still haven't figured it out, and I feel like I'm always going to be figuring it out. But yeah, no, I'm ready to do a feature, and with all the actors that I enjoy working with, I would love to work
Yeah.
with them going forward, and I'll always have like some role somewhere.
Yeah. Does that, I mean, with the transition into feature, do you think you'd stick with writing or co-writing your own work, or do you feel like you'd take scripts on board and kind of work from them, or do you feel like you want to keep it your own way?
I mean, I definitely am open to the idea of like taking in a script and like working on it, but I do like producing kind of
Yeah.
like my own like in-house ideas. Like with OCD, it's very much Connor and I's like
Yeah.
little work. And so that is sort of what I would like to do. But hopefully, if like the universe lets it happen, and
Yeah.
OCD is the feature that we do next, or the feature that we do first, then that would be amazing. But I am open to both for sure.
Now, I feel like I've taken up way too much of your time. You've been really
No,
generous.
dude, you're good. Oh, you're good, dude.
So I know this past like season for movies has been incredible in my opinion. It's been, fantastic. How is there any movies that you've seen recently that like have just recently released that you've loved?
It's funny because I have not watched a lot of movies like in the past
Yeah.
month, because I feel like I've been so deep in the edit of OCD that it's just like, dude, I literally was telling everybody, I feel like Cartman in like that episode of South Park where he's just like sitting there like playing fucking video games like all day. Like I'm just on my computer editing for 12 hours, and then I just go to sleep. And so I haven't had a lot of time to watch a lot of movies recently, but what I did see last year, I mean, I think I saw most things last year. I really liked Saltburn. I thought Saltburn was great.
Did you?
I did. I liked it. I actually really enjoyed it. You didn't?
No, I wished I wished it with my friends, and because we watched it like 2 months after it first released, and because I don't think they were like, they're not on like the movie side of TikTok. They're kind of on the comedic, the skits and all that. So when all of these, because I get things about the Eye and Claw, which is fantastic. I watched it on the weekend. That was,
dude. I was bawling.
Yeah,
I was
because I went with the same people. And anyways, I was on TikTok, and I just see Barry Keoghan, and people that haven't seen Saltburn, you might want to just stop listening now. But I'm scrolling, I just see Barry Keoghan, he starts dry humping a grave. And I'm like, what the fuck? And then and then I get the next one. And because when you're on TikTok, you watch a video for 1 second too long, your For You page is fucked. Like it's that constantly. And then the next one was the bathtub scene. And I was like, right, and it was Barry Keoghan, and I was like, what the fuck is going on? Like I don't understand what is going on here. And then I said to my mate, because it was coming out on Amazon Prime, which is easy. And I said to one of my mates, because the other guy that's really into films, I said to him, look, please, can we watch Saltburn? Do you reckon the others would want to watch it? And he was like, oh, I don't know. Yeah, maybe. I think he was kind of like, he wanted to watch it, but kind of didn't, because I think he kind of knew what was going on. And we go to my mate's house, and we go in, and we watch a horror film, because I think that's kind of like go-to to watch with your mates. And
Yeah.
Then we had some spare time, and we just decided, stick Saltburn on. All right,
Yeah,
just
fuck
stick. Yeah, you know what? Let's rip the band-aid off. Let's go. Let's do it.
Yeah.
And we were all sat on this like 3-person sofa. There's 4 of us, so we were all sat on this 3-person sofa. And I moved away from that sofa because I didn't want to be on the same sofa as my friends when I'm watching this movie.
Fuck it, dude. You gotta sit close.
It was not that kind of movie that
I'll be like, sit on my lap, bro.
No, it was, yeah. Well, I put it on, and I'm occasionally checking at my friends' faces, and I think we got halfway through, and I think it reached like, because we had to drive home, it reached to a point.
Yeah.
I think it was a mum talking about how she's a lesbian and how, crazy stuff.
Right.
And we just watched the guy masturbating in his bathtub, and in the bathtub scene, and I look behind, and I just see my friend, and the listeners can't see this, but I'll do it for you. He's just like this, like it was the best face I've seen reaction to a film. And then I can't remember when we decided to watch the last half, but it was just I think from like a storytelling perspective, and the color grading and how it was like laid out, and like the set design, I think that was really cool. I kind of questioned the writer and how like that comes about, you know what I mean? Like there is some kind of things that I watched, I'm like, right, okay.
Yeah, well, I get what you're saying, because I think there's a lot of movies that I'll see and I go, okay, the writer or the director is just trying to be weird to be weird. But for me with Saltburn, I'm a big fan of Emerald Fennell. I think she's great. And when it comes to like the character that Barry Keoghan is, by the end of the film, which obviously you realize he's just this like psycho master. It's like then everything kind of makes sense. And so it's like, if you put all of those things into perspective of like how crazy this guy is, like him like drinking the bathwater isn't really like that crazy. And so like those things kind of like put it together, where it's like she was really building this character and showing like how obsessed he was, and what like a fucking insane human being he is. And so I actually really enjoyed it. I didn't think it was the most amazing movie ever, but I actually thought it was. It was one that I thought, and also too, because it's an American film, I feel like there's a lot of Americans, or at least like Western people, who are like, whoa, that's so gross. But then like, I've seen so many French movies, dude, where I'm like, Saltburn was like nothing. Like you watch like a French,
to be fair, because I mean it was an American take on a British it was like a private school, but the things that happen in this country, it's not even like that far off what probably happens. Like there's some it is a weird culture to be a part of. Like you hear of like awful uni traditions, and over here I don't know how bad frat over there is, but my sister went to university. Her first year, it was a couple years ago. She messaged my mum. She goes, she was one of her flatmate's boyfriends, and it was the rugby team. And the rugby team in England, they're notorious for having like really bad initiations. And the initiation was, so I think they'd all have like a partner. They'd get paired up with their, I don't know, like a second year or a third year, and they'd kind of be like their slave master, if that makes sense. Is a weird, sadistic, and they kind of act like their slave. And then in the last, I hope I'm getting this right. My sister will probably correct me if I'm not. But it was I think it was a swimming pool in the middle, and they all decided to drink and then throw up into the pool.
Ugh.
But then the pool in the middle, you'd then drink out of the pool with the sick in, and then I think they were made to just constantly vomit into the pool. And then it's really fucking strange,
dude. What the fuck?
I know. And then
it's terrible.
And then the part where the flatmate's boyfriend comes in is that I don't know if he was dared or he was just told to stick a firework up his ass, right? He lit the fucking firework, And I don't know the rest of the story because my sister didn't go into too much. I don't think she wanted to pry anymore of what the fuck, just what kind of fucking atrocity that
Yeah,
she'd
yeah,
just
yeah.
been told. But short, long story short, the guy ended up in hospital when I think it was like 3rd-degree burns all around his fucking ass. They'd lit the firework. That's just like, I think, I don't know how bad it is in America, but I think seeing some
I
of the
mean,
things that are like
yeah,
that.
I've heard stories. I mean, I've heard stuff. Compare, like, I didn't go to college, and so I don't
Mm,
really like. And I know people who went to college, but I feel like I haven't heard of like insane
yeah.
stories like that, because I feel like those awful like traditions and sort of uh I think the word is like hazing,
Yeah,
like
yeah,
those
yeah.
like terrible, like just disgusting things that people do. I don't think they happen as often as they used
Mm,
to, but I know there's a ton of stories. Like I remember they said some shit that like John Hamm was in college and he was like a part of like some shit like whatnot, and
mm,
so like I think like back in the day it was different. I mean, obviously
yeah.
terrible things still happen every day, but yeah, no, that's disgusting, dude. That's
No,
terrible. Yeah.
it's all rugby's awful for it here. I don't know why. I don't know what it is with. I don't know because it's gotten to the point where everyone knows that that's what you have to go through. Like
Right.
that is like this kind of like standard. Like that's probably not even the worst that happens. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's fucking strange in England. I'm not going to be joining the rugby team, so
No,
that's
don't, dude. That's awful. That is the
that.
worst
Yeah.
thing ever.
But no, I saw. So I and Claw. I did you watch Oppenheimer and Barbie when they first came out?
I did. I saw Barbie. I saw Oppenheimer. I think
Mm,
I have my letterbox right here. I think I saw most. Yeah, I saw like Poor Things, Asteroid City, John Wick, which is fucking awesome.
yeah.
Holdovers, Iron Claw, Barbie, Maestro, and Killers of the Flower Moon.
What was your highest rated out of all of them?
It was Oppenheimer and Saltburn and
Oh,
Holdovers.
really?
That's like it's like
Yeah.
those three. I think those three were great. I think Iron Claw was the thing is I loved Iron Claw and it was really really fucking
Mm,
good and it made me cry like horribly, but I it's one of those movies where I'm like I don't want to see that again because I'm
no,
like
absolutely. Yeah.
it's so sad.
Yeah.
It's so sad that like I would rate it lower because it's so sad,
Yeah.
but
And
not in a
yeah.
bad way. Like it's
Yeah. Yeah.
still
Yeah.
great.
But because the worst part, because obviously I went in, because I was a big wrestling fan, like the old wrestling, like Bret
Right.
Hart. I love that kind of thing. I went in because when I was younger, I used to love like the history behind people, and like
Yeah.
I'd search, I'd watch, I don't know, 1989 WWF SummerSlam. British
Right.
Bulldog would come on versus whoever. So I'd search up British Bulldog, and it'd just be like British Bulldog died 2007. I was like, what the fuck? Okay.
Yeah.
Kerry Von Erich. Brilliant.
Yeah.
He's fucking sick. Look at him. Look at him.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Kerry Von Erich shot himself. And then at that point, I was like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
And then because I saw that, because obviously the Von Erichs were a big wrestling family. I clicked, on his siblings, died and died, and then I
Yeah.
actually when I was after the film, I was only aware of those four, but there was another brother that was just left out of the movie completely that killed himself. Like it's
Yeah.
just
Yeah. Yeah.
that
Yeah.
it's just I think it's one of those films that you need to watch it for the message of how damaging, because obviously there's an underlying message of abusive
Yeah.
families and that
Totally.
kind of patriarchal thing going on. But I think it's one of those films that you need to watch once, but just don't watch it again because you'll never recover. Like
Yeah.
it's
No, it's a hard movie to watch. There's a lot of movies like that I feel like I've seen that are just like so brutal that like I'm like. Like
yeah,
I can't. I'm just not a fan of movies like that. Like, not saying that they're bad movies. It's just like they put me in such a shit mood. Like
yeah,
movies to do with like cancer or
mm,
like there was like a 9/11 movie called like Flight 87 that's like just the
yeah,
most horrible movie I've
yeah.
ever seen. And like even like Brokeback Mountain, I don't know if you've
Mm,
seen that's
I haven't,
fucking
no.
dude,
Yeah,
it's fucking depressing. Like it's just like you're just like crying and then like
yeah,
the movie ends and you're like and then you're just sitting there and you just feel like shit like the
yeah.
whole like
No,
after and
absolutely.
again beautiful filmmaking in all these movies and they're fantastic in their own right. It's just like for me I tend to enjoy more movies that like lean
Yeah,
they can be dark, but they have a little like levity to them. And when a movie's just kind of like dark the whole time, I'm just like, oh, and it like puts me in a mood, you know.
Have you seen One Day out on Netflix?
No, I haven't. Oh, is that a what is that?
So it's I actually I was watching because there was the new release of the Greatest Night in Pop, and it was about what was it? We Love the World. We love the world.
Oh yeah.
It was it was a whole documentary on that. I kind of have this thing where I watch a film, and if I stop halfway, I won't return to it. And it's fucking awful because I watch a really good film. I just don't like knowing I just don't like ending things, I guess. But I got to that and I saw One Day popped up, and it was new release. And I'm a sucker for like rom-coms, like romantic shit. Notting Hill, top 5 films of all time. I fucking love that.
I love When Harry Met Sally. That's my favorite.
Yeah, that is also. I watched Love Rosie. That's fucking amazing. But not One Day came up and it said newly released 2024, and then I read the description and it was. Have you seen Normal People?
With who?
It's Paul Mescal, Daisy Edgar Jones.
No, I haven't.
You need to watch that as well because that is actually, it is really fucking depressing. Like it's just one of those.
I haven't seen a lot of Paul Mescal movies. Yeah. Like it was he did the one that was the excuse me, what was it? It was the A24 movie that came out. What was that one?
So After Sun.
It was After Sun, and then I didn't see Normal People, and then the one that just came out with Andrew Scott.
We Travel. I want to say We Something.
It's like
All of Us Strangers. All of Us
Strangers. Like, yeah, I haven't seen any of them. I love Andrew Scott though. He's amazing.
Well, One Day is basically, it's like a limited series. Normal People and One Day were both limited series, and it's a fucking rom-com. And I was expecting, because I love Notting Hill as a happy ending, thought One Day fucking happy ending. And I'm not going to spoil it for you because it will just take away from fucking atrocity that you will watch. But it's kind of like the synopsis of it is that it's a couple. It's 2 friends that meet on the last day of university, and then every day on St. Swithin's Day, which is July 15th. So every episode is July 15th of the next year, and it kind of follows their journey on. But that fucking, you were on about Brokeback Mountain fucking destroying you. I was sat there. I finished it because after episode 13, you understand why. You get to episode 14, you can't make sense of what you're seeing because episode 13 has just fucked you so much.
Yeah.
And then afterwards, I was just sat there questioning, just like, what the fuck have I just seen? And like, it's those kind of TV shows and the movies that have like such a weird writing behind it, and like, because it's such an obscure like take on a love story. It's just like impressive that they can come up with that kind of idea, you know what I mean? Because it was a remake of Anne Hathaway's, because they did a movie on One Day, but it was like Anne Hathaway and someone else, which I didn't know, because if I'd known that, I wouldn't have watched the limited series, which is just longer and just made me more depressed. But you know, you said that when you're watching Saltburn, you liked it for its reasons. When you watch a movie, do you have a favorite for, you know, the acting and then another favorite for the directing, or do you kind of not see that, or do you just like a movie in total?
I do think that for me, I do just look at a movie as a whole, but I do think that there are certain things that I do like that I'll notice. Like for instance, I was a big fan of Babylon. Like I really liked Babylon.
I love Babylon. Babylon was
loved
fucking amazing.
Here, I'll tell you a really funny story. So Roz and Ryan were in Babylon as like background extras, but they were in it like 6 times.
Really?
So they did. No, literally, like if you're really paying attention, like you will see them in multiple scenes in the background.
Oh, fuck.
And so I'll tell you something funny. We were shooting Valley at the time. Yeah. And Ryan and Roz goes, "Hey dude, I just got on Babylon." Like, because it was called like Wild Chickens is what I think it was called when it was on the casting website. And Roz is like, "This is 100% Babylon." And he's like, "Dude, this is like fucking amazing." And so Ryan's like, "Well, let me submit for it." And Ryan submitted for it and he got on as well. And so they both got on, and they were in that big war scene where like, you know, they clashed.
Yeah.
They were in that scene, And then they were like, wow, that was so fucking cool. Like, it was so cool to like see like Damien and Brad and like
Yeah.
whatever. Even though like they said they were far away, but still they were like, it was really
Yeah.
cool. And then the casting went back up on Actors Access, and it was like, hey, that was basically Babylon again, but it was for a different scene. And Ryan Ross was like, let's fucking do it again. And they did it. They got in, and then when they went to set, they were like, I hope I'm not like throwing them under the bus, but when they went to set, they were like, hey, listen, anyone who's been on the production previously, raise your hand. You can't be here. And they're like, fuck that. Like, I'm staying. And so like there's a shot where they walk across the theater. There's like this big push-in shot where Margot Robbie walks out. She's like, rushed by fans. They walk in front of her, and then there's another scene where Margot Robbie's in the movie theater, and she's like watching her movie, and it's like a full back shot. It's in the trailer. Roz and Ryan are directly behind her, so you'll see Ryan. No, Ryan's like that, and like it's pretty funny. And so like when they were on the film for that specific scene, they had to be in like tuxedos, and Ryan texted me and said, hey man, I just want to let you know they want to shave me. And I'm like, fuck, dude, because we were supposed to shoot Valley like the next week. And so I was like, dude, just do it. And so they ended up shaving Ryan, but we used that kind of opportunity to shoot Ryan's like old photo that Roz like holds up for the sign. And then we just shot Valley. Like, I think like we just pushed it back by a few weeks. But I loved Babylon, and I thought it was a fucking fantastic movie.
Yeah, because there were people like, oh, it was fucking shit. I didn't understand it. I don't know how you don't. Like, it was a fucking amazing movie.
I thought it was incredible. I didn't love the ending particularly, like, but I loved the fucking movie. And I thought from a directing standpoint, I thought it was particularly impressive. Just the amount of blocking, and even just like the way that whole scene where Brad kisses the first actress, and then the armies clash, like behind them. Like it is really impressively directed, and that's why I do feel like that was a huge snub that year, because I think it was one of the best directed movies that year. Even though like I didn't think it was the most incredible thing ever, I loved it, and I thought Damien did an incredible job. But I typically just look at a movie as like a whole. I mean, I have a couple like favorites, like my favorite movies are like I love Goodfellas. I love Singing in the Rain, Barry Lyndon, Inglourious Bastards. Fucking loving Inglourious Bastards
was amazing.
Dude, the beginning of that movie, just the beginning scene at the milk farm, I think is one of the best scenes in like any movie like ever. And Christoph Waltz is unbelievable, an unbelievable actor. And I love like a Paper Moon. I love Paper Moon. That movie's incredible. So I think like my taste like really varies like a lot. Like I'm like fucking kind of everywhere. But yeah, no, I typically just look at them as a whole.
Did you watch Once Upon a Time in Hollywood?
I did, yeah.
What did you think of that?
I really, the thing is, when I first saw it, I didn't love it. And then I saw it a second time, and I was like, I do enjoy this movie, and I do think it's a really good movie. And I think like he does a really, really good job at like keeping you in that era, and it feels like you're in the 60s. And I think it's one of the most impressive showcases of like world building in that sense. But yeah, no, I thought it was a great movie.
I think it's because it was such like it was a long drawn out movie, and I think maybe the ending, because of it, like if you read the backstory behind it before you went in watching it, and you saw and you understood like the significance, I guess, of the ending, then it would make more sense and it'd probably be enjoyable. But I think what Quentin does really well is the fucking gore, because the gore, like Django Unchained is a masterpiece. I love Django. Inglourious Basterds does it as well. But the fucking fight scene with Brad, and it actually is, I couldn't watch. There's one scene where he just smashed the guy on the girl on the corner of the fucking that. It was like the worst part of anything is the corner of anything, and it was this sharp cobblestone fireplace. And he's just heaving her head in, and I don't even want to think about it.
It's funny because I think what you said Quentin does really well about gore is something that I enjoy with his movies, whereas like with other directors like Ari Aster, I feel like his gore is so realistic that it makes me really uncomfortable. Whereas like, I watch a Tarantino movie and I'm not uncomfortable. I mean, the ending of Once Upon a Time in Hollywood is really graphic, I will say.
Yeah.
But like the rest of his films, like Kill Bill or whatnot, they don't seem like they're definitely gory, but there's something that
Yeah.
feels like it's still a movie.
Like
Whereas, like, then
realistic.
yeah, like, but then you watch like Ari Aster, and it's like, I don't know if you saw Midsummer or Midsommar. I don't know how you say
No,
it, but
I didn't know.
dude, it's just like you see
I've
like someone's
heard,
skull like
yeah.
open, and it looks real, and I'm like, in my head I go, whoever made that like prosthetic or like special effects, they had to look up like real shit,
Yeah.
because it looks it's awful. It's like one of the worst things. I was just like, why do I don't want to see that. Yeah.
Imagine the fucking person that just searched up, because like that's the worst part. But I also, to be fair, I think other movies that do it well is like Saving Private Ryan, like
Right.
the ones that are like based in that kind of thing, because it makes it. I maybe not. I mean, Fury had me in tears. I watched Fury.
Fury was tough.
That was, and I think what they do as well is I think with war, you have to tread finely between making it realistic and believable, because obviously with the Iron Claw, getting rid of, I'm blanking on his name, but getting rid of that, it made it more realistic, because having 4 brothers that died and only one surviving, that makes it more realistic, I guess, instead of having 5.
Right.
But with war films, I think, and like Band of Brothers,
Right.
is depicting the emotion behind the death, and not just the death in general, like Quentin Tarantino does. I think that's done really well. But like like Fury fucking killed me as well. I remember I watched that because Band of Brothers, and I'm actually getting a couple of the actors on next month.
From Band of Brothers?
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Which is fucking, I remember. But yeah, I think that, like Hubler, and when he died, that was, it's just hard to watch because of the emotion, whereas Quentin Tarantino focuses solely on the damage that it does and how it impacts the story. I think that's kind of each director has its own take on it, I guess. And I think that's kind of like the defining point between, I don't know what genre I guess you're taking.
No, it is interesting. It's interesting to look at every director's take on violence, and even like Scorsese and even Kubrick, they all tackle it in a very different way. I don't know if I have a favorite of like, because I feel like for me, the way that I like to kind of like showcase if there is like a violent scene is it really is just like like with Valley, for instance. That entire way that I shot that scene was very inspired by like you can see it if you know these movies, but Le Samurai, the way that he like assassinates his targets, and then of course like Goodfellas, and then the scene in Thief at the end where he's like going through the house with the pistol, and then there's this shot in Death Proof where the girl jumps over the car and she shoots Kurt Russell. Like all those things I've kind of like pieced together, and it's interesting because I still feel like I haven't fully found like the exact thing that like I love how to showcase violence, or like if there's a violent scene or something that requires that. And I also think whatever the scene is, I'm not a fan of like unnecessary violence. I think like the violence should have like a reason and a meaning. And so, with Valley, of course, there is that. And of course, with Frenchmen, it's stupid, but there is a meaning.
No, I think you do it well. It's like the way the legs break. And obviously listeners don't listen to this next part because I don't know if you have watched it yet. But with the way the legs break, it's obviously repulsive to see because you just see the leg just fucking snap that way. It's disgusting. But the way you do it, I think, is like how the war films do it, is how they don't show Quentin Tarantino level of fucking gore and violence, but more the emotion and like how the fucking reaction to it, and it adds to the story more than kind of like the ending, if that makes sense.
Totally.
Now,
no, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
No, you go first.
You go first.
You're the guest. I'm really good.
You're the guest.
I'm really good at this game. At this game. I'll stop talking.
I have a sibling. I'll stop talking as well. So, look, for the listeners that actually might want to just stop. We
just got into a huge fight.
Yeah, we just got to take a minute there.
I actually forgot what I was gonna say. So like,
I
mean,
no, I
now
actually did forget.
yeah,
Because the thing is when I ask a question, like earlier I was going to ask it was you said something about West Calico, and I was going to talk about how previous look, see, I'm forgetting what the fucking question was now. But when you're talking about like things that you look back on, you kind of want to change.
right.
I was thinking of that in my head, and I was like, fucking sick. I got my next question.
Yeah,
And then
yeah,
you're
yeah.
saying something else. I was like, oh, that'd be another. Wait, what the fuck was I just saying?
Yeah.
And I was like,
do.
ah, shit.
I tend to like ramble and like,
Yeah.
but then I'm like, okay, I remember the question, so
Get
I'll like
back on
finish.
point. Yeah.
I'll finish off the original question, but I
Yeah.
think I'll say so much shit in between that it's like you're like, wait a second, you know?
Yeah, no, absolutely. But like, with how is this good timing for you? I don't want to like push
Yeah,
on.
we could always like like wrap it up soon, but I'm good, dude.
No, we'll wrap it up now. I'll cut this bit out so the audience don't fucking
Yeah. No, you could like, dude, I'm good for like another like 10 or 15.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, totally.
Well, hang on, let me just leave. I'll leave a little pause so I can.
Yeah, this has been fun, dude. This has been really fun.
But like movies like Babylon and like the way Justin Herbert's, because I fucking love Justin Herbert's and the music behind it. And La La Land, Mia and Sebastian's theme, fucking
right.
Love that too. When you're doing your films, because you obviously had, was it Aileen? I can't remember how you pronounce it, but in the trailer for
Aileen,
Frenchman, yeah, fucking love that song as well. And that was actually
amazing.
I was so happy you used that because I knew it before the trailer. I was like, what the fuck? He gets it. He gets it.
Yeah.
But are you in charge of the music? Do you have someone kind of pick it for you?
No, it's the way that I've always been with my movies is typically like with Frenchman and Valley, those movies started from a song. And so Valley, I was listening to Breakaway by Irma Thomas, that inspired the movie. With Frenchman, it was Moi Juju by Brigitte Bardot, and that song inspired Frenchman. I was like, oh my god, that'd be so funny if we killed Olivier.
Yeah,
like it's like these things kind of pop out of nowhere. But I typically, when I'm working on a movie, I'll like create a playlist and then I'll go through like a bunch of music. Like I have a super eclectic like music catalog. Like I listen to music from like the fucking 30s, and then like obviously like there's a murder on the dance floor. Like I listen to fucking everything.
Straight to fucking Sophie Ellis Baxter. Yeah.
I listen to everything. But I like with like even OCD, there's a song called I Put a Spell on You by Screaming Jay Hawkins. And that song, there's a moment in the movie that it takes place in. But I pick all the music myself, and I think that like I find something that fits that vibe, and then I work after that. So like there'll be ideas where I'm like, okay, this scene is going to have this song, and I already know that song is going to play over that scene.
Yeah.
So I kind of direct it knowing how I want to like edit it, if that makes sense.
No, that does matter. I think because you do it well, like the music that you do that is used, it kind of portrays the emotion of whatever scene you're pushing, and I think that's what is done really well. But
right.
I think you've been really generous with your time here. I think I might have took too fucking long because I've been.
No, you're good. This has been super fun, dude. Let's do one more. Give me one more. Let's do one more question.
Okay, let me think. I'm gonna think quickly. Okay, let me look at my list. OCD. Can you give us a quick synopsis of what it's about?
Yeah, so OCD follows a neurotic delivery driver named Owen who is suffering. He has severe OCD, and his girlfriend, she's a TikToker, and she is creating this exposure therapy dinner to try and expose him to all the things that kind of trigger him. And while he's in the store and he's on the phone with her, she helps him resist a compulsion, and then by him resisting that compulsion, it triggers the apocalypse. And it's fucking dude, it's fucking crazy. Like that
does make sense why you were mentioning about how you're fucking OCD and how like far that went, and then this guy's just triggered the apocalypse. Like you can definitely see it.
It's insane. The movie, I think it's the best movie I've done for sure.
Yeah,
it's like by far the best thing I've done. It's funny. It's all around. Like I just fucking love that movie. And it's like I said, it's like with Frenchman, it's kind of batshit like Frenchman, obviously, with the apocalypse part. But I think it's done in a much better. Like I learned a lot from Frenchman. I learned like a ton because Frenchman, I love it. But because we did improv a lot, there's certain things that I'm like, I wish I didn't, or I wish I paid more attention to this or that. And like one of those things in particular is like cuss words. And so in Frenchman, they cuss a lot. You know what I mean? Like I feel like you know how like was that movie Wolf of Wall Street broke the record for most F words in a movie, and I think Frenchman has to be on like most F words for like a 24-minute short movie.
The way that Olivier goes, this will fucking fuck your fucking shit up, man.
This would fucking fuck you up. Yeah, dude. No, it's insane how much cussing there is. But you know, it was fun for the movie, and I think the vibe that I was going for, like for me, it Frenchman is those movies that it's like, it's those Seth Rogen movies. It's Pineapple Express. It's This Is the End. Like I love those fucking movies. And like I've always wanted to make just like a dumb buddy stoner comedy. And so I think it fits for the movie, but like in hindsight, I'm like, damn, I see like the F word like a lot. Like they're like fucking this and fucking that and fucking this. And so like it's things you like take from those, like with OCD, where I'm like, okay, we'll be improvising with an actor, and I'm like, yeah, let's save, don't throw in fuck, because I think it should be earned rather than just said, you know. But I think if it makes sense for the character, then it makes sense.
No, absolutely. And any listeners that haven't, you know, watched any of Luca Pizzolio's films, short films, his documentaries, anything, you need to watch them because they're honestly amazing. Luca, thank you so much. Thank you so much for giving me this time with you. It's been amazing.
Dude, of course, man.
Thank you.
It's been
listening.
amazing. You're incredible. You like the best questions. Great questions, man.
Thank you very much. Thank you everyone for listening. Thank you, Luca. I'll get you on the next episode.